We're used to seeing the Spartan like this. Bronze helmet, shield strap slung over his shoulder, spear in hand, and nothing else. Muscles, honor, death in battle. A Hollywood myth polished over centuries. But let's imagine, just for a moment, what if all of this is merely a facade? What if behind this image of bronze and blood stood not only warriors, but people whose hands smelled of resin, iron, and sweat? People who didn't slash enemies, but built machines capable of shattering city walls. It's commonly believed that Sparta won through bravery alone. But wars aren't won by courage alone, especially when your enemy hides behind walls meters thick. Here, it's not the spear that decides, it's calculation, timber, ropes, axle grease, and the knowledge of how to make a ton of wood move with mechanical precision. And right here, the first crack appears in the myth. Why do we know the names of Leonidas and Cleomenes, yet not a single Spartan engineer? Where are their names on the shattered rams? Where are their inscriptions on siege tower blueprints? The answer may lie in the very nature of Spartan propaganda. Sparta didn't glorify those who built. It glorified those who died. Engineers didn't fit the narrative. Their work was unclean, too close to craft, too far from the warrior ideal. They were erased, but not entirely, because the earth keeps evidence. In 1987, archaeologists near the walls of Messene uncovered charred wheel fragments over 2 meters in diameter. Too massive for carts, too sophisticated for makeshift design. And in dusty, long-ignored parchments, fleeting lines mention machines that walk like tanks and crush stone like the fists of gods. We were not looking for legend. We are looking for traces of those history chose to forget. Picture yourself at the foot of the Taygetus Mountains in 425 BCE. The air is thick with the scent of pine resin and forge smoke. But Sparta isn't. Deforested Arcadia or the ore-rich Laurian. Where, then, did the dozens of cubic meters of sturdy timber for towers capable of withstanding hundreds of tons of stone come from? The answer lies in the ports. At Githeo, under silent agreements, ships docked from Crete, the Cyclades, even Macedonia. Iron came from Laconia, where Helots had smelted ore in primitive furnaces for centuries. Bronze, recast trophies, temple offerings, anything that could be turned into hinges and fastenings. Sparta, supposedly contemptuous of trade, suddenly found itself entangled in a web of contraband supply chains without which its gods, machines, would have remained mere dreams. And who drove the nails into those towers? Not Spartiates. They trained to die beautifully. The labor fell to Helots, thousands of invisible hands, their names erased even from the smallest inscriptions. They hauled logs, turned axles, greased ropes with sheep fat, all under the supervision of perioikoi, free but disenfranchised artisans. It was they, not the poor heroes of marble statues, who knew how to tension a catapult, sinew, so it wouldn't snap on the first shot. Their labor was invisible, but without it, Sparta wouldn't have besieged a single city. Now, the numbers. According to Xenophon, building one siege tower during the siege of Plataea cost as much as 30 triremes, easily over $50 million in today's money. 50 million for a machine that could burn from a single incendiary arrow. Meanwhile, a Spartiate slept on straw, ate black broth, and wore one tunic for a year. Where's the logic? in the fact that austerity was theater. Real power lay in extravagance, hidden behind barracks walls. And finally, the most uncomfortable question: how did Sparta know how to build what it had never built before? In 399 BCE, outside Mantinea, towers with movable bridges appeared, technology identical to Athens. A year earlier, Spartans captured a Persian camp in Asia Minor and found Babylonian-style siege machine blueprints. Coincidence? Or systematic espionage? Perhaps Sparta's greatest weapon wasn't the spear, but the ability to silently steal foreign ideas and present them as divine will. This is how it actually looked. Not 300 warriors with spears, but 9 rams, each as long as a trireme and as heavy as a war elephant. They were called the head of Ares, not out of poetry, but because the bronze ram, his head was cast in the shape of the war god's furious brow. But beneath that symbol lay cold engineering logic. The main beam wasn't just an oak trunk. It was a composite, cypress core, wrapped in damp fir bark and bound with iron hoops. This sandwich absorbed impact vibration and resisted cracking from recoil. Each ram hung from leather straps threaded through wooden frames, a primitive but effective suspension allowing repeated strikes without repositioning. Physics was unforgiving. To breach a meter-thick limestone wall required acceleration of at least 3 meters per second. 20 Helots pulled ropes integrated into a counterweight system, not cleverness, but necessity. Without it, force would dissipate into nothing. Lubricant, not sheep fat, as in peacetime, but a blend of beeswax and pine resin heated to 40 degrees. Otherwise, ropes would snap from friction. All this was assembled in the field, in the rain, without a single blueprint. The masters, perioikoi from Githeo, worked from memory, passing techniques from father to son. One wrong measurement, and the tower would collapse under its own weight before ever reaching the wall. Yet Spartan machines looked crude. Athenian engineers used bronze gears. Carthaginians employed precision-turned olive wood axles aged for decades. Sparta relied on brute force and speed. Their siege towers weren't elegant. They were stubborn. Walls of unplaned logs fastened with iron pegs, not nails. Why? Nails broke on the first impact. Pegs, driven into pre-drilled holes, acted like hinges, allowing the structure to breathe under catapult strikes. This wasn't art, it was calculation born in mud and fear. Take the siege of Plataea. The city stood on a hill, its walls were local tough, light but brittle. The Athenians built an earthen ramp to elevate their towers. Sparta took a different path. Their engineers, whose names we'll never know, assembled a wheeled tower with 2.5-meter copper-sheathed wheels. Not for beauty, copper prevented wood from swelling in rain. Inside, a 3-tiered platform system, each on a separate frame, so if the top collapsed, lower levels kept functioning. When the tower neared the wall, it wasn't that just leaned, it was driven in, using momentum from a slight downhill slope. The stone cracked on the first blow. The second shattered it. The third made it vanish. That was their advantage. Not precision, not elegance, but the ability to keep working, even as everything around them broke. Spartan machines didn't end to win engineering contests. They won in mud, under arrows, in darkness. They weren't built for glory. They were built to survive. And perhaps that's why they were erased from memory. Acknowledging them would mean admitting Sparta stood not on spears, but on ropes, resin, and the knowledge of how to make wood break stone. Dawn outside Plataea in 429 BCE brought no light, only ash and the stench of burning wood. The air trembled, not from cold, but from rhythm. Creak, 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 as 20 pairs of Helot hands pulled ropes, calluses biting into resin. Then, a dull thud, a rumble, as if the earth had sneezed. Plataea's wall shuddered, and stones tumbled from its crest like crumbs from bread. This wasn't an assault, it was demolition. Spartan machines didn't attack. They spoke to walls in the language of physics. Each ram was a fist, but with patience. They weren't led into battle with cries of "Ah la la," but with commands. Pull, stop, grease. Who gave these orders? Not the king. Archidamus, standing in the rear, with his cloak draped over his shoulders, didn't know the exact angle needed for the frame to strike the wall's point of maximum stress. That was managed by a nameless man, a perioikos from Githeo, whose fingers remembered every crack in every beam. He didn't but wear a purple cloak. He carried the smell of scorched resin and knew that if a rope snapped at the wrong moment, he'd be the first pinned to the wreckage of his own machine. The soundscape of a siege was an engineer's nightmare. The crack of splintering wood wasn't just noise, it was a death sentence. On the third day of the siege, one ram split along its central axis, not from impact, but material fatigue. The Spartans didn't stop. They didn't wait for reinforcements. They simply drove wet olive wood wedges into the fissure and kept going. Because stopping meant death. Infantry already crawled toward the wall under the tower's cover. If the machine fell silent, the infantry would be exposed. The tactic was simple. The machine creates chaos. The infantry exploits it. But if the machine breaks, chaos favors the defenders. Sometimes technology failed. During the 385 BCE siege of Mantinea, a siege tower collapsed on a slope. Center of gravity shifted. Ground softened by rain. Sparta didn't retreat. It switched to brute force. Helots, shielded by hoplites, filled the ditch with corpses, brushwood, earth, anything that could form a causeway. This wasn't Plan B. It was Plan A disguised as desperation. Yet every time a machine broke, the myth of pure Spartan valor briefly returned, as if the gods punished them for daring to replace the spear with calculation. But when the machines worked, they reshaped war's geometry. Cities were no longer impregnable. Walls ceased to be boundaries. They became temporary obstacles. After Plataea, Greek poleis built not higher, but smarter, counter-towers, projecting galleries, ram traps. War became an engineering duel, and Sparta, supposedly scornful of everything but courage, found itself at the forefront of this new era. So who really stormed Plataea? 300 bronze-clad Spartans, or 9 wooden monsters guided by invisible hands? History chose the former, but the stone that crumbled under the blows of the head of Ares remembers the truth. Why does Thucydides' History of the Peloponnesian War, so meticulous in tactics and troop numbers, say nothing about who designed the siege engines at Plataea? He describes the Athenian ramp in detail, but is silent on Spartan towers, as if they sprouted from the earth. Xenophon, in his Hellenica, celebrates Spartan discipline during the siege of Mantinea, but calls it a victory of courage over weakness, not a single name. Not a hint of workshops, blueprints, last-minute fixes. This isn't omission. It's deliberate silence. The Spartan elite, called artisans banausoi, men corrupted by forge smoke and labor sweat. Their resin-blackened hands couldn't touch a citizen's shield. Their knowledge was too earthly for the warrior ideal, which demanded only the skill to die. Thus, engineering was exiled from history as unworthy of remembrance. But the machines kept working, because war doesn't wait for ideals. Imagine a modern commander praising soldiers for bravery while not knowing who designed the drone that bombed the enemy position. It was the same then. Spartans advanced under cover of machines whose builders weren't even allowed to stand beside them in formation. These invisible fighters, perioikoi and Helots, were the backbone of the entire war machine. Without them, the 300 would have remained at the wall like statues. One such craftsman may have stood by the ram that Plataean dawn. He knew that if the olive wedge didn't hold the crack, the beam would split like rotten cloth. He didn't pray to Ares. He tested rope tension with his finger, like a violinist tuning a string. His name is lost, but the wall fell, and that was his voice, muffled by centuries. The hypothesis is confirmed. Sparta didn't just use technology. It depended on it. Those 300 at Thermopylae, without rams and towers, they'd have remained at the wall, like statues. Archaeology, forgotten lines in Xenophon, charred wheels near Messene, all converge. Behind the myth of pure martial virtue lay a logistical and engineering machine built on Helot blood and perioikoi ingenuity. The irony? Sparta's most perfect creation wasn't the head of Ares. It was the myth of the invincible Spartan, as solid as tough stone and just as fragile under the hammer of facts. History doesn't belong only to kings and heroes. It's hidden in the resin, on the fingers of those who built the instruments of victory, but were never allowed to claim it as their own.